to Matthew. Hey, how has New York sports over the past 25 years ended up so weak? For being the biggest sports market, it underachieves compared to San Francisco, LA, Miami, and Boston.
Well, the Yankees now are not what the Yankees used to be under George Steinbrenner, and that was a long, long time ago. Boston obviously has undergone an ownership change, and the evil empire, they were the original evil empire. Since Larry Lucchino left and then passed away, they're not quite the same. The Mets have gone through ownership situations, and despite Steve Cohen spending the kind of money Steve Cohen has spent, it's not worked out well. And I think they're on the border of just a disastrous season at Citi Field. Yeah, they got Soto, and they got Francisco Lindor, and they got Peter Alonso. But I just don't think they have anywhere near enough pitching. They're down 3 of their 5 starting pitchers already, and we have not thrown the first fastball in a regular season game. So ownership's got a lot to do with it. Bad luck's got a lot to do with it, too. And this is a Dodger franchise that has spent and has won. And they got 2 rings and 10 first-place finishes in the last 12 years or so. So I don't know if this is going to be a permanent shift forever, but the Dodgers are doing what the Dodgers are doing with success, and the Yankees are just kind of staggered. The Mets are not what Steve Cohen wants them to be.
Well, New York sports fans right now are probably really fired up for St. John's.
Yes.
Because they're just doing fantastic in the tournament. But yeah, you look at the Jets and the Giants are awful. The Knicks haven't really been relevant since the early 80s with Patrick Ewing and Pat Riley, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might add a couple of years here or there. They had the Jeremy Lin years, right? So, yeah. So, and then you go to baseball, and yeah, the Mets and the Yankees have had moments, but it's nothing like it used to be. Because the Knicks back in the early 70s, they were dominant.
So are you telling me Dodgers are now the universe of baseball?
Well, of course they are. It's obvious. They're proving it in Tokyo right now. But yeah, it's also interesting about New York because there's so many colleges there that I'm not sure where they are. Like just last night, I was
none of them play Division I sports per se. Not Manhattan College, not NYU, etc.
But like Farley University, or is it
Farley Dickinson? That's New Jersey.
Yeah, but it's right across the river.
Yeah.
So it's pretty close to New York City. I was surprised.
Does that register on anybody's radar?
Not really, but yeah.
That's where we are. That's a good question, but a little bit of a changing of the guard, I think. We move on. Next one.
We move on. Okay, let's go here to T-Val. And he says, UCSD, class of 1992. Right on. Do the Tritons have a chance against Michigan, and will women get out of the first 4?
We'll find out. We don't know anything about the women's side of the bracket. It's a play-in game for the Lady Tritons, and they're going to play Southern University out of Louisiana. The basketball team, they have to hit threes. Threes will be the great equalizer, because I don't know how they're going to be able to defend inside. Tate Jones is going to have his hands full, and they got to keep him out of foul trouble. But ball movement, hitting threes, and the Tritons have had a game where they hit 18 threes. If they could bang a lot of threes, maybe that changes the chemistry of the game. I've always maintained the three-point shot is the great equalizer in college basketball if you don't have bulk and beef, and obviously UCSD does not. But they earned it. 30-4 is so cool. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for those kids to experience this. And for my co-host, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be an asshole till midnight tonight when the offer expires.
Well, all those players came from D2 universities,
sure,
except one of them came from St. Mary's, but he was kind of a guy at the end of the bench. So this is thrilling, and the great part about it is this kid, Ania, I always say his name, Ania Tate Jones
from Hawaii Hilo Division II,
originally from New Zealand, but he plays a lot like Miles Bird. He's got the very great court awareness. He's able to make those no-look passes, do some interesting things. He's leads the nation in free throw attempts, which is an interesting statistic. But Hayden Gray on defense is fantastic. Ty McGuy hits the big shots. They got a lot of other role players to play that are going to be terrific here. I'm just worried about it's Michigan and how big are these guys? Because when they went up against UC Irvine had that really big center from Germany, and he was like a tree trunk out there. If we end up having to go up against someone from Michigan like that, it's going to be a tough go.
By the way, Irvine's in the NIT.
They are.
They got chosen last night.
Good for them.
There's hardly anybody in the NIT you recognize.
What about Boise State?
No.
Really? No, maybe it was a letdown for them, I guess. I don't know.
Just amazing. Okay, babe, we'll follow this going forward. this guy's going to be barking till midnight tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be terrific. All right, let's keep going. And we'll go here to Alan. He goes, "Hi, Saw. Will the Miami Dolphins ever be relevant? Been a long time since they've been good. I think it's the curse of Tom Garfinkel."
Well, they got Tua, and if they can keep Tua healthy, and they've got wide receivers, that's a big issue. But they seem to churn a lot of that roster almost on an annual basis, and they let guys go. They import other guys, etc. Got to keep Tua standing, and I think that's the biggest piece of the equation in Miami. He gets hurt, then they become a woebegone franchise.
You know, when I first was a kid, follow football, the 49ers were horrible, but the Dolphins were the king of the hill.
Oh, the Dan Marino era.
No, I'm going back to the early 70s when they had the undefeated season with Bob Greasy and Paul Warfield and Larry Zonka and Jim Kick and Mercury Morris. That was a hell of a team back then.
That was 50 years ago.
That was Garo Yepremian was on that team.
That was all things Don Shula.
Yeah, but he's right. I mean, we haven't really – I mean, the Dolphins had that big playoff game against the Chargers when you were an announcer. Mm-hmm. And so there have been a few moments, but they haven't had a dominant run in a long time.
No, but Tua is really good. They just got to keep Tua on the field. But they've worked really hard, I think, to add people around them. But the injuries change the whole scope of your team. Okay, move on.
Moving on. Okay, I want to go back up here to Steve Zach Botsford. He says, "What do you think of the Kings? Do they have a chance going into the final months of the regular season? Also, who would you choose as Rookie of the Year?"
I'll tell you, Darcy Kemper has played a hell of a lot better in goal than I thought he was humanly going to be able to play. When they got him back in the offseason, I said, "You're bringing him back. You cut him loose, let him go." It's a pretty good team. They've not scored with the explosiveness that I thought they would the second half of the season. But they got Drew Doughty completely back. Brant Clark has played really, really well. Mikey Anderson is kind of an unsung guy that you trust to play 25, 28 minutes a night. I think they're good. I was a little bit stunned that they didn't do something to get another goal scorer, but they didn't want to take on any more money, and they didn't want to give up the future. They had a lot of young kids. Byfield's hot. I think Quentin Byfield, the number one pick, who they force-fed, he might be 22 right now. He scored 5 goals in 5 games. So they can just continue this push going forward. But please understand this. Everything in the Western Conference, I think, is going to wind up going through Winnipeg. And that's going to be hard because the Winnipeg Jets are really good, really deep, with maybe the best goaltender in the NHL. But I think it's been a pretty good season. They got to find a way to get through the first round. I don't know if Edmonton is going to be there right in front of them again, because the Oilers have beaten them 3 straight years in the first round. But it's a good Kings team, but they got to get over this hurdle. They got to go deeper into the playoffs, and they got to score goals. That's the one thing has been so inconsistent the second half of the season.
So are the Oilers and the Jets natural rivals?
Yeah, and Calgary's kind of in a mixture of that. Everybody in Western Canada hates everybody else.
Okay, Vancouver.
Yeah,
because I'm just kind of trying to figure out how they line up. Because obviously, the Toronto and Montreal, that's a classic rivalry.
Sure.
So, but it's still a long drive to go from like Winnipeg to up to.
Well, Edmonton, Calgary are just hours away on the freeway.
Right.
Winnipeg's a little bit different thing, and obviously Vancouver's a couple provinces over.
Yeah, so it's a lot different. I'm just kind of learning again more about hockey, but the Kings should make the playoffs. You think?
Oh yeah,
they'll make it. And do you think the Ducks are still on track to finish above 500?
They're scuffling right now. They've had a couple back-to-back setbacks, which was kind of stunning because they had fought so hard to get to the 500 mark, and now they've had a couple of setbacks the last couple of games. So they're not going to make the playoffs. I would say right now, biggest storyline is Edmonton. Do they trust this goaltender? That's a huge issue because Skinner has not had a year this year like he had last year when it looked like he had grown into the job. That's there. Calgary's got a couple of goal scorers led by Jonathan Huberdeau. Calgary's got a really young goaltender, Dustin Wolf. Can Calgary's younger team learn to play in the postseason? That's a big challenge. Vancouver is a mishmash of personalities. You never know what you're going to get. Scoring goals has been really hard for Vancouver, and they got some guys making mega bucks that are not the Warriors that I thought they would be. So you got all those guys wrapped around the guys who got 45 or 46 wins, the Winnipeg Jets, who are deep, a lot of different goal scorers, really strong on defense. Connor Hellebuck, best goalkeeper in the NHL. So, like I say, everything that happens in the Western Conference, be it the Kings or anybody else, has to go through Winnipeg. Not going to be easy.
Not going to be easy.
Not at all.
Okay.
Okay, we move on.
We move on. Okay, this is an interesting one. WNBA talk from James, and he says Clark is hating by the other WNBA players because she's white and straight. Simple as that.
That's unfair. That's unethical. I know there's a lot of, we call them divas in pro sports. Most all of them have their males sent to the wide receiver position in the NFL. And obviously there's a lot of issues with personas in the NBA who I think have degraded the game. I don't understand why, if you're saying it's just the African-American players in the WNBA, why would they do this? Do they not understand how great this player is and how this great person who kind of dragged women's college basketball to another level and has now delivered the goods exactly in the WNBA? Why? Why's it got to be black versus white? Why don't you just appreciate the greatness of the player? I guarantee you, if something happened to Caitlin Clark, she blew out a knee, season gone, their numbers would plunge. It wouldn't be the same league emotionally. What? I hope it's not race. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm too naive to think that it shouldn't be that way in 2025. At least that's my opinion.
Well, it's my opinion. It's jealousy, and because they think that, you know, some of the players, they deserve the attention because they are the superstar that's been, you know, a 15-year veteran in the league, you know, 10-year all-star, some of these players. So I think it's jealousy. And then is there, you know, are there other societal issues like, you know, in this case, race or sexual orientation kind of in there a bit? Yeah, it is. It's there, but I think it's on a very low end degree. The bottom line is that we just got to get over it and just focus on the fact that we're making more money now. The WNBA, the pie is bigger. And when the pie is bigger, there's more to go around. So get on board, ladies.
I agree wholeheartedly. Good question. Thanks for joining us, James.
Okay. This is probably from a Dodger fan, from Jay. He goes, Padres winning 70 games this year.
Ooh. We're going to do our baseball preview in about a week. I don't know if it'll be next Monday or maybe next Thursday. We will do a full-scale division-by-division break. 70 games. Now, if you're telling me something catastrophic is going to happen, like a couple of these pitchers break down, yeah, then I think they'd have a problem. But if these guys are these guys, and the guys making big money all have pretty decent typical seasons, Manny, Fernando, Bogarts bounces back, 70 wins? No, I can't see 70 and 92. Is he on a haters line?
That's what it is. That's exactly what this is.
Okay.
This is Dodger Nation showing the dark side, you know, and they love piling on. This is what this is. It's a poke. It's a jab. It's bait to try to get us to react. I'll tell you what, though, the Padres, I think, are going to finish above 500, hopefully in the high 80s, low 90s in terms of win count. I think that's a realistic number. I think they can be a wild card team, but you know, you're going to have one of these three teams winning the East. It's going to be either the Mets, the Phillies, or the Braves. And I don't know who's going to win the Central, maybe the Cubs. And then you're going to have the Dodgers and then either the Padres or the Diamondbacks. So really we're competing with the Diamondbacks, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets this year. I mean, those are the wild card contenders, unless there's a surprise team. I think the Padres can be in the middle of that pack and therefore become a playoff team.
So we should cancel the show a week from Thursday because you just did your baseball preview.
Did I? Oh, that's the tease. I'm not following up on the tease.
No, Padres win 70, please.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, I projected last year because I went back and read one of the columns I wrote. I get bagged on all the time. You know, Padre lover, Padre homer, Padre hater, blah, 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 blah. I projected they're going to win 88, and that was at the upper limit. They won 93. And they went right to the bitter end, and they should have gone to the World Series and didn't get it done.
So close.
Oh,
so close.
Don't flash back with me. I get a stomachache thinking about that.
It's going to be a great year. I can't wait. And this is a little bit of a tangent topic. This is from Adam, and he says, Padres plus San Diego College B-ball. Man, I love San Diego.
Who would have ever thought we'd ever have a day in our lifetime in which basketball in San Diego was on everybody's radar and everybody had an opinion? Because when I first came here in the late 80s to do sports talk, there was no basketball. Nobody cared. The Clippers had left. And prior to that, the Rockets had vacated. And we had an ABA team that was here for 12 minutes, the Conquistadors. Nobody paid attention to San Diego State. And now we got 4 teams in March Madness. Go think about that.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And because were you here when Smokey Gaines was the coach?
No,
for the
that was
Aztecs?
prior to my arrival, but he had that nice little run.
Yeah, there was moments there. And I guess that was at the Michael Cage era, I
Michael
think.
Cage, Michael Kennedy era. Exactly.
Okay. So, yeah. And then you got into it was like Fred Trinkle, I think was one of
The
the
Brandenburg era blew up in their face, and
Yeah.
Trinkle came, and that was a disaster. They had a guy from somewhere, it might have been Stanford, Tony Fuller came, and that that was a disaster. He was a nice gentleman.
Yeah.
Just didn't work out, and then all of a sudden Steve Fisher came after having been with the Sacramento Kings, having been exiled from Michigan as an innocent victim of the Fab Five scandal, and look what he did, and now he handed it off to Dutcher. It's been tremendous.
I remember back then I was disappointed because the alternative to Fisher was Tarkanian.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, each of them have a checkered past, or so I thought.
No.
So I thought.
Fisher didn't have a checkered
That's
past.
the thing, is that we learned a lot more about Fisher. Fisher is not just simply a high character guy. He is a friggin' angel from heaven.
Dude ought to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, he's a magnificent person. But back then I didn't really know a whole lot about him. It was the Fab Five, all that. And I figured Tark, the Shark, man, he had that great run with UNLV multiple times, including winning the championship in the 90s.
Full of scandals, too.
Full of scandals, yeah. So it worked out perfect. But that is an example of build it and they will come, man. They built that Cox Arena then. That got Fisher to come. And then now look where we are.
Exactly. So we got Padre baseball, obviously what basketball has become, although there was a hole in my heart and a lot of people's heart over what the Spanos family did to San Diego Charger tradition and legacy. Okay, we move on.
Okay, let's go here to Hector. And he goes, Lee, all these owners calling for a salary cap do know that the players, to even consider this farce, they will need to open their books, right?
Yeah, there's not going to be a salary cap. The luxury tax has got teeth in it. That kind of acts, Hector, and your point's well taken. They're not going to open their books. No, they're not. What has to happen, you've heard me talk about this extensively, and Tony Clark needs to come to the realization that he represents not just Juan Soto, but everybody on a baseball roster. We need to have a floor to spending, which means everybody's getting all this revenue sharing money, and they do have a problem with the TV situation, the TV contracts, the lost revenue from the regional networks. But everybody's getting all this revenue share. There's got to be a floor to spending. And I swear to you, Hector, if everybody had to spend $120 million, and if you can't afford it, then get the hell out, sell your club to somebody else who can afford it. But if everybody spent $120 million, there'd be so many good players that would go to Miami, go to Tampa, go to Pittsburgh, etc., because they had to spend $120 million. And let the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers spend their $300 million and pay the luxury tax. We'll never get a cap. To me, the competitive balance of baseball is going to be triggered by the floor to spending. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but you can end up in an upside down situation, right? Where you're committed to having a big payroll, and maybe you made a commitment like, Artie Moreno did, and it didn't work out. And then suddenly your team stinks and you can't draw enough people and you're going to be losing money. I mean, I could see that scenario playing out.
True, but you got to make the right decisions with the right people. So Artie Moreno made mistakes in free agency. He was impulsive. He hired some bad people to run his operation, bad drafts and all that. But that doesn't mean you can't get out of that water. I mean, you can fix your franchise in a couple of years span if you spend properly. And I'm not saying sign every free agent, but if you spend properly in the farm system with good baseball people, that's the big issue. Is he's had some real substandard decision makers that kind of put him into this hole, and they had all his bad luck, and he was so bloody impulsive himself.
Yeah, it's just not gone right for him at all. But I want to talk about here, opening the books. Do any leagues or teams do that? I mean, they're all private corporations.
Green Bay Packers are a publicly owned thing. They do open their books, but nobody else really does. No, not at all. And they're all making money.
Right, because I think the thing is that if they could show that they're making a profit, which would be made the truth, good for the ownership and the investors, but the fans think they should spend every nickel and penny on payroll. They think it's a community asset. They want it to be nonprofit.
Well, it's going to be a community asset because you're asking me, the fan, to buy box seats along the first base line right behind the dugout. So it is a community investment.
Do they even still call them box seats?
In some places they do, yes. And some of us are old school, but that means experience with a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. We move on. Thanks, Hector.
Okay, and Matt had another one. He goes, even the Yanks have by their own standards.
Well, true. I mean, Yankee fans are in for a shock. I mean, the health of your stars is what puts you in a pennant race. And if you get guys hurt, especially pitching, you're in trouble. And you just think of where the Yankees are right now. 3 of their 5 starters are out. And Garrett Cole is gone for at least a year, if not longer. And you obviously you're scrambling like hell right now. They have a total of 5 pitchers on the disabled list right now, including hot prospects that they thought might be part of the rotation somewhere over the course of the season. So they're reeling, and they don't have Juan Soto. It's just not the same franchise right now. So, but that can happen anywhere.
What do you think about the new policy that they could grow a beard?
I thought the Steinbrenner rule was really outmoded and outdated. Now it's been removed. But that's not going to make them better because they still got 5 pitchers on the disabled list with or without beards.
I just thought it's a weird rule.
Yeah.
But it is a private company. He can set the terms and conditions. But it always struck me as really odd.
I concur with you. I'm surprised nobody barked about it. But they're getting paid so much money and wanted to play in New York because it's a baseball financial capital of the planet. And he played for Yankee tradition and a house that Ruth built and all that. And so, okay.
We think the Players Union would have objected to it at some point, right?
They probably did, but nothing ever came of it. So,
yeah, all right.
Steinbrenner was Steinbrenner.
Okay. Want to give a quick thank you to Bob for throwing out a $1.99 sticker. Thank you, Bob. And he has a question or a comment. He says, Boise is in the new Crown tournament in Vegas, Fox property, and will pay NIL dollars.
That's good. That's great. I mean, that's a 3rd-tier tournament. I'm having enough problems with the NIT. Once upon a time, that was a real special thing. When Steve Fisher first built San Diego State, and I spent a lot of time out there. When they finally got good, they were 0-14 his first year. I think they were 5-23 his first year, had no players, just got smoked. And anyhow, 3 years later, they had the chance to go to the NIT. And I said, guys, this is really cool. You get the chance to go to Madison Square Garden and play. And the Garden is the Mecca. Now, I grew up on the East Coast, so I know what the Garden meant to basketball fans with so much heritage. And that was a marquee tournament with a lot of good teams. Now, this is before the NCAA went to 68. Prior to that, it was way back. But it's not the same tournament now, and it's run by the NCAA. And if you look at the names of the teams in the NIT this week, they're all like mid-major, lower echelon teams. I think there's 3 of the teams have 500 or sub 500 records. There's just not enough good teams to have that tournament. And then you got the Vegas tournament, which is the 3rd level below the NIT, which obviously is below March Madness. So awful lot of games. They don't mean very much. It's great that those kids have a chance to go play, but it's not a big thing.
I think the landscape has changed because it used to be that everyone would love to go to a postseason tournament.
Yep.
And then, they created those other ones. There's like 2 others that are almost like pay to play.
Mm-hmm.
I think CBI is the name of one of them. But if you're a program that's never been to the postseason, you might be willing to do that.
Sure.
and pay to play. But, by the way, I think the other team that deserves some love, by the way, is Point Loma Nazarene. They Division II, both their men and women's team got into the playoffs.
Right. Well, they'll play and they'll play at their level. Then they won't play before big crowds and they'll play in small gyms and all that. But that's who they are, and that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, here we go. Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, let's go here to David. And actually, he had a comment, kind of a follow-up on the San Diego FC. He says their record is 2-2-0. Football put the draws after wins and before losses.
I concur with you, but I look at it as 2-0-2 because they've never been beaten. I'm sorry, that's old school. Wins, losses, ties. Unbeaten in 4. That's pretty impressive.
That's how the NFL does their standings.
Sure.
The ties are the 3rd column. But it does make sense that the ties would be the middle column because you still get a point for a tie. So again, the lingo, all the new words and ways of describing the game, it's different in soccer.
If I start talking to you about the standings in the National Hockey League, I will utterly confuse you and you will be so lost. I'll need a search dog to find you. If I start talking about the NHL standings, wins, losses, overtime losses, shootout losses. That is all part of the
expanded
NHL
card.
Yeah, you'd be lost. We won't go there.
And by the way, did you find it interesting that MLS doesn't do any kind of an overtime? They don't do any kind of a shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, they would in the playoffs, But what's the NHL? What do they do in regular season ties? They just let it finish in a tie?
No. It'd be the 5-minute overtime, and then
Yeah.
it goes to shootout.
Right.
There are no ties.
But there was a time when they were ties.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Way back in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, but they got creatively better, and then they went to the overtime, and then they changed the overtime and made it 3-on-3 in overtime, not 5-on-5, which opens up ice space, and it terrorizes goaltenders that somebody's going to fall down or make a mistake, and I'm going to be left naked.
It's like the ghost runner on second base.
Exactly. So
which, by the way, isn't a ghost runner; it's a real runner.
They have evolved the thing.
Okay,
David, idea, but they're 2-0-2 as far as I'm concerned.
Okay,
Thank you.
They're undefeated, right?
That's right.
Undefeated. I think we got to go with that. Let's go here to John. He goes, whoever gets the Rays might have some fun baseball to watch for a while. They've done a good job of developing talent. If they move to, say, Nashville, get a good regional TV package and enlist all the Music City talent, they could be a destination.
There's no doubt somebody would be out there to be willing to buy them. The thing is, then Rob Manfred would be vacating the Suncoast. He does not want to do that. But Tampa St. Pete has not supported it. Maybe it's just because of the demographic. Everybody lives in Tampa St. Pete. There's an older demographic and doesn't want to get on the highway and go to games. Their TV ratings are through the roof. Everybody watches Rays baseball. Everybody in the Suncoast, they're from the Northeast. If they're not native from Tampa, St. Pete, they're from the Northeast. They're all baseball fans, but they're down there and maybe they don't want to drive. And, I think that the demographic for Rays baseball is a hell of a lot older than most people realize.
Yeah, I think the community around Tampa is like Del Boca Vista from Seinfeld, where all the folks go down there to retire. But the Buccaneers have no trouble selling out.
But that's the NFL.
But then the Orlando Magic is just right up the road from Tampa. How do they do on attendance? Probably pretty good.
When they've been pretty good, they've had some good seasons, and they've got some really good young kids this year. They had Shaq way back in the day, and Penny Hardaway. But again, that's the only show in town. That's up on the northeast quadrant, in this north central part of the state.
Yeah, but it's like right off the freeway. I think it's the 4 freeway, if I recall. It's not too far away, but there's not a whole lot of, if you go north of Tampa, you get up near Panama Beach and that kind of area.
Nothing around the Panhandle. No.
There's not much going on up there. So I don't know. It just makes me wonder if they have read the market wrong in Tampa, because it's true. There's a lot of baseball fans, but not necessarily the ones that are going to come out like on Petco. We get all the young people and it's a big party.
Product has been pretty good in different stretches of time with different ownership. They have gone to the playoffs, have gone to the World Series, but right now they got a stadium situation. Nashville is out there. That could be a nice Mid-South regional franchise. Charlotte is out there, wants baseball. The Triad in North Carolina, it's got a lot of people living there. Obviously, Portland's trying to come up with this idea to build a kind of a dome stadium on the Willamette River. That's a smaller market. It's a Pacific Northwest market. So there are people out there, probably ownership out there, but Rob Manfred does not want to vacate the Suncoast.
Interesting. Well, all right. Well, let's keep on moving. We'll go here to Greg. And he goes, John, put on a Seattle Mariners hat on that head.
Just give it to him, Greg. John's feeling his oats right now till midnight tonight. He cannot be a punk after 12 midnight tonight, but I'm letting him have his way because of UCSD.
UCSD made it, man. It's a huge historical thing. If you were to talk to people that have been alumni from UCSD, most of them don't even follow sports because they're scientists and biologists and doing research. And the fact that we are now in the tournament is mind friggin' blowing. But yeah, this is my moment. I'm going to live it. And maybe they get on a run. That'd be terrific. But I'll say this, back in the 70s, I was an A's fan too. They had a nice run then. Good times.
I never would have thought you and I'd be talking about UCSD on this podcast as a lead story. That being said, make sure you check your email, because I think the Alumni Association is going to tap you for a big-time donation.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, you probably get rung up all the time from Ohio.
Oh, I get all the stuff from Ohio University. I give to like 4 different foundations at my alma mater. And when they asked me to come back and speak, I said, yes, I'll come back and speak to the College of Communications. And they brought me in. Then they brought Peter King, who just retired from Sports Illustrated. He is an Ohio U alum. So I spoke and he spoke, and it's great. And I come home and I got like 6 different more emails from other unique foundations at Ohio U. So support the alma mater. Okay, we move on.
Good for you, Hacksaw. You're a good alum. Here's Ted with a follow-up on Tampa. He goes, excuse me, I picked the wrong from Ted. It's this one. Too much baseball because of spring training in Tampa.
Could be.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, obviously half of Major League Baseball holds the grapefruit circuit, and it's a big thing. Again, we got a new stadium in Miami, but a bad owner in Miami. Got an old bad stadium, and a lot of people think a bad owner in Tampa. They all kind of go hand in hand. I don't know what the solution is, but blowing up this idea about when they had all the funding put in place and then the hurricanes occurred and then Sternberg walked away from the Tampa situation. That's a big setback, I think, for the Rays, a big setback for Manfred and what he's trying to solve with baseball. Because he thinks he's solved the crisis with those guys, the Athletics. Enjoy the summer in Sacramento, won't you?
It's going to be brutal.
Yeah,
and it's going to be 100 degrees out there. Air's going to be thick. It's going to be tough. David has an answer about the Rays, and he goes, "People in Florida are poor. That's why they have to live in that hellhole state. They don't want to go to Rays games.
There's no income tax.
Yeah,
in Florida, or no, should I say no sales tax?
No, it's no income tax.
There's a lot of money in Florida, but the demographic, the people that live in Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton, that's a much older demographic than I think modern day communities, other places. I don't have a solution to Tampa right now. They thought they had a solution. It's kind of blown up in their face.
Well, there's a lot going on societally with, red state, blue state, and people leaving California and going to Texas and going to Florida. And there's a lot of that going on too. So the demographics are shifting. So I think you talk about Tampa as a lot like an older community. That might've been true 10 years ago. It may be different now.
You know, what's really different here. We're doing this podcast. We're into our third year and they haven't asked us to leave yet. What's my heritage besides being a loudmouth talk show host? What's my heritage?
You're a Long Island boy.
Well, I'm talking about professionally.
Oh yeah, as a sports journalist, going back to Akron, going back to New York. Yeah,
trying to connect the dots here. Where did I come from? What did I do before I met you? I was a voice of a couple of NFL teams.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm looking at the listings of everybody on this podcast in its third year. We have not had a football contributor yet. And we're in the middle of freaking free agency. Where are the NFL fans?
Well, we're talking a little bit about. We're talking about Tampa. I mentioned the Buccaneers.
No, I'm talking about those people.
No. It's interesting is you were asking me about how all of our videos were doing on all the NFL comments from the last podcast, and the baseball team still right now gets more views, more commentary, and a lot of it's just Dodger Padres smack talk.
That's okay,
and people love that. But right now, I think free agency. There were some big names that moved, but it's not nearly the same level of hype as the draft. When we get to the draft next month, I think we're going to be a lot more NFL talk, and then definitely when the season starts.
I will definitely hold you to that. But it just kind of stuns me, the aftermath of NFL free agency. All-time record, 236 free agents is signed as of this morning, 6 or 7 major trades. What the Chargers did overnight was really impressive. What the Rams have accomplished with very little cap space, impressive. We've not had an NFL call yet in fans forum. Now, maybe it's going to come. And I find it hard to believe because, A, I'm a big baseball guy and I love everything. I cover a ton of hockey and all that. But my heritage is I came from the NFL. I would have thought there'd be a lot more people just firing salvos talking about their NFL teams, what they did not do.
It's interesting about you specifically.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Self-critique.
Because you have like this NFL persona that's fully legit. I mean, you're on NFL Films. I mean, you're the real deal as an NFL broadcaster, but you were the broadcaster, you said, of the Phoenix Giants, which was a AAA baseball team.
San Francisco.
And then you've been,
the broadcast the Utica Blue Sox in the New York Penn League back in the day when I was a kid.
Yeah. So you've done that. Then you've also done hockey, obviously.
You're right. I am a Renaissance man.
You are. I mean, what about basketball? Have you broadcast basketball?
I did college basketball, a whole bunch of it.
Okay.
Okay.
What else have you done? Track and field?
I broadcast that.
You did?
I broadcast a marathon, which was kind of unique and very different.
Really?
I broadcast golf.
No, I didn't know this.
Yeah, different events and stuff I did back in the day in smaller markets. So
good for you.
I've done everything.
Yeah, you are like Leonardo da Vinci.
No, I didn't cut my ear off and move to the south of France. Oh, who did that?
That was Van Gogh.
Van Gogh. I'm not Van Gogh yet. I'm looking for NFL fans to join us on Fans Forum. It does kind of surprise me coming out of free agency because I'll tell you, when we did Sports Talk Radio, you could not get on that talk show because it was clogged from here to the highway interchange with football fans who wanted to call.
Yeah, but when we had a team, it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so many football fans in San Diego have abandoned the sport. They just written it off.
Okay, let's move on. I'm going to stop whining. I'm just expressing a truism. I'm a little bit surprised, but go ahead, John. Where do you want to go?
Okay, let's go here. Let's talk Chargers here. And this is with social media. This is from Izonka. He goes, got more consistent but less explosive at running back. Huge improvement at right guard. Jackson versus Fulton is a wash. Really, the loss of Poona Ford is the only significant decline, which I think they address early in the draft.
Probably true on virtually all categories. Somebody was just banging us at it. What the hell are you talking about? The Chargers had a lousy year. Well, when we did the podcast last Thursday, they had a lot of player erosion. They had not made moves on people outside of Najee Harris. Well, then obviously overnight Friday, they went out and they got the huge guard from the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think is a pretty good run blocker, but he's not very good. I've seen his metrics in pass blocking, but they went out and they wound up in getting him to come on board. In the bigger picture, it's a different team. I love the acquisition of Najee Harris. I think the acquisition of the right guard from Philadelphia helps them a great deal in terms of run blocking. I don't like where they are at center unless they're going to move Zion Johnson into center, because the center they re-signed to a 2-year contract. Bozeman's one of the lowest rated centers in all the National Football League. They have not re-signed J.K. Dobbins, which kind of surprises me. That might be arguing about dollars and cents. But if they could pair Najee Harris with J.K. Dobbins, and they think they fixed the right guard situation, and if they can fix the center situation in terms of blocking, then maybe they're a more complete offensive football team. Now, Mike Williams is fine at age 30, but boy, there's a big injury history. I really like Josh Palmer, who up until this past year had done a lot of things catching balls down the field. They really need some more wide receiver help. Now, maybe they will address it a little bit with their picks in the first and second round. So I'd say right now, as we talk on a bonus Monday, they're a lot better than they were Thursday when we talked to you. So, but obviously getting a guard plus Najee Harris, I think, are nice acquisitions.
Yeah, I think it was weird because we had done that video talking about that and made a splash, and the minute we posted the video, they started to make a splash.
Yeah,
and this guard for the Eagles, was he one of the starters for Philly?
Yeah, all year. He had resurrected his career. He was a high number 1 draft pick with the New York Jets, who bombed. He was miserable. Played the University of Louisville, massive mountain of a man, all kinds of weight problems, couldn't move his feet, failed miserably for 3 years. And they just let him walk. They never picked up the option. He was gone. Philadelphia brought him in, and then because of injuries, Philadelphia had to play him at guard. But he was surrounded by superstars. Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens are center, and what they got on the left side of that offensive line. So he was, I'm not going to say weakest link, but he's probably the lowest rated of the 5 offensive linemen that the Eagles had. But he had a really, really good season. So they're going to put him at right guard where he's protected. So if they can get another center, and maybe it is Zion Johnson moving from left guard to center, I think they'll probably be better. But they still need consistency at wide receiver. They still need another burner at wide receiver. We'll see where it goes. Okay, let's keep moving. Social media and speaking about the Eagles, here's a comment that came in, and this is from Johnny Cage. It's about your free agent losers. I guess you had the Eagles on that list. And he says, how can you say the Eagles are losers when Howie has a proven track record of drafting well? Hey, this is the same host that talked about one of the unsung heroes in building Super Bowl teams, Howie Roseman, and what he's done. But I was surprised that they let or did not try harder to keep either Milton Williams inside a defensive tackle or Josh Sweet. I mean, they lost them lickety split. You know, one guy went to New England. Tell you, Williams is going to play a lot for the Patriots. The other one went to Arizona, and he's going to play a lot there. I was a little surprised there, and then they got rid of Darius Slay on the back end. So they're down 3 or 4 integral parts of what made that defense really good. So I was just surprised. I knew they were going to have some cap issues as we got to this offseason, and they gave Saquon Barkley more money than God. But it's a big issue because they let some really good guys just walk out the door, and those guys got snatched up within the first 3 hours of free agency. So when you got good talent, this is Hacksaw's philosophy in the NFL. You got good talent, better keep that good talent. And if you let all that talent go, make sure you got guys to replace them. And right now they got some holes on that roster from guys that contributed, played very, very well. It's not a condemnation of the Eagles. I just thought at that point in time, I didn't understand why they didn't try harder to keep Milton Williams and at least Josh Sweet.
I think I'm going to take that Hacksaw philosophy and we're going to etch it into stone right next to your statue. How's that sound?
Put it on my headstone.
Yeah. And I think the word loser, I think, can be interpreted a little bit differently. Like they lost big players, right? But it doesn't mean they're a loser team. I mean, or it's a loser GM.
Those two general managers that got their teams to the Super Bowl, those two of the brightest light player personnel guys that I've seen in modern day football. And last I checked, Johnny Cage, we talked extensively about the smart people in the Eagles front office. So they're not losers. But on this day, when they let those guys go, that's a big issue to me.
Okay. All right, we're talking a lot of NFL right now. This is good. We've got a lot more of this in social media. Let's talk here about the Raiders. And this is from Sean in Sin City. He goes, definitely don't agree. Added 3 players that maybe are even better for less money. Coaches said from the start what they were going to get. Hustlers. All 3 new players run and play the game. All 3 we lost, missed tackles all season long.
Well, I thought they were making a lot of progress, and I really thought Pete Carroll was going to be the magnet to the silver and black. It hasn't really happened. They have unbelievable faith in Geno Smith. They're going to have to pay Geno Smith because he's on the last year of his contract, and he wanted mega money, and that's why Seattle let him go. He asked for $40 million. I'd never pay Geno Smith $40 million. I'm not even sure I'd pay Geno Smith $30 million. But that being said, when they lost 4 or 5 off the back 7 on defense, and these are young guys that they force-fed that were getting progressively better and better, now they got holes. They got holes everywhere. And by the way, the free agent window's closed. I mean, you could strut around the street in the silver and black and say, we got 10 draft picks and we got $107 million in cap space. Well, now you got holes everywhere on the defensive side of the football, not up front, not with Max Crosby and the guys, but that back 7, they got holes everywhere, and there's nowhere to replace these guys with. You said, well, we'll go get them in the draft. But draft means young guys learning on the job, getting force-fed, making mistakes, breaking down. I just don't understand the methodology because at one point, I thought the Pete Carroll hiring was the most fabulous hiring of probably anybody around the NFL. Boy, fans are just chomping at the bit. Nobody agrees with anything I say, ever.
Well, John, you always critique what's happening right now, right? And this is like the first big thing that's gone down in the news with the Raiders since they got Pete Carroll, right? And you don't like the free agent selections. Oh, you're busting out the notes.
My chart.
This is unbelievable. Show this to the audience again. It's just the way you keep track of everything.
I am a smart guy. I have a system. These are the free agent acquisitions of every team in the National Football League since free agency started the middle of last week. So, therefore, I will turn to the Raider page, okay? So, this guy, this guy here is going to critique what I had to say. So, the Raiders got Jeremy Chin, decent safety. Washington, Pro Bowler? Nah. The Raiders got Eric Stokes, once upon a time, starting quarterback Green Bay. Difference maker now? Nah. Lonnie Johnson, a safety, sitting on the bench. Elander Roberts, linebacker at Pittsburgh, sitting on the bench. Alex Kappa, offensive guard. Cincinnati didn't want to keep him, let him go. Raheem Mostert, tough guy running back, 49ers, Miami, he's been around the block. He's okay. Can he stay healthy? So outside of Jeremy Shin and Raheem Mostert, Raider Nation, that's all they got. And you lost 4 to 5 guys off your back 7 on defense. And you got Geno Smith as your quarterback, who's okay, but he's not, I don't think he's a Super Bowl quarterback. So how are you better today than you were prior to the start of free agency with Pete Carroll there and Tom Brady's influence? Or am I wrong for critiquing all things silver and black?
Well, you're always in grudge mode with those guys. Here's another Raider comment, and this one's from Skate FM. He says the Seahawks did very well last year with Geno Smith as their quarterback. They missed the playoffs because they lost some important games. The Raiders are going to be all right. I mean, Geno Smith's an upgrade at quarterback. You got to give that.
He's better than the gunslinger, yes.
Yeah.
But he had 20 touchdowns. He had 15 picks. He had 50 sacks. And he's not playing in a better situation in Las Vegas because do they have a running back right now outside of Mostert? No.
Ashton Genty.
Well, maybe. Well, again, when that day comes up, we'll talk about that acquisition if that is the acquisition. But it's just it's not a complete team right now. And he's got 1 year to go. He doesn't have, I don't think they got great wide receivers outside of Jacoby Myers. There's just so many holes on the Raiders side of the football. And again, Seattle said no, walk. And they got Darnold. Here's the angle. Nobody's talked about this. I just found this out. Sam Darnold signed that 3-year big money contract. The Seahawks can walk away from the contract after the first year.
Ooh, that's good for the
Seahawks.
He
gets big guaranteed money the first year. But if it doesn't work out, if Sam Darnold reverts to what Sam Darnold used to be, they might walk away from him. It's kind of weird. But I just dug that story up. I just found out about that about midday today before I was going on. I said, wow.
That's got to be such a downer for Sam Darnold because he came out of the gate a hot prospect. He was terrible to start his career. He resurrected it with the Vikings. They thought he was going to make $1 million gazillion, and now everyone has this big cast of doubt because of those last 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. And now he signs a big contract where he gets a lot of money up front first year, but he doesn't have a great year. There might not be a second year in Seattle. Seattle could be a mess.
But is that an upgrade for the Seahawks? I mean, Darnold, Geno Smith, they're kind of the same guy, aren't they?
I don't know. Darnold had a mystical year. Geno Smith did throw for 4,000, but threw a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks. That's why they're going to play the game in. That's why we're going to be talking about it.
Okay. Well, I have faith in Tom Brady. I want to see them make the turn there. Okay, let's switch around here. We'll go to a little Rams talk. And this is from Conrad Soul. And he said, Lee Hacksaw always tells the cold, hard truth, whether you like it or not, regarding your team. And it's nice we got Lee's blessings. Hope the Rams make a run.
Pretty good. Sean McVay, he's quite a salesman. I mean, he helped resurrect Matthew Stafford's career, gave him guidance. They put a lot of good players around him. That's a very good young offensive line. And then went on and got a starting center because the center slot had been battered by injury. So I think the Rams right now are in just a great position. Hated to see Cooper Kupp go, but in all honesty, Devontae Adams is better than Cooper Kupp, and he's got more big play abilities down the field. And they force-fed all those young kids on defense. And John, we talked about this last summer. We talked about it into the fall when we did our preview. I said, you just watch. You watch what Jared Verse becomes, what Brandon Fisk becomes. And they played them all, and they played really well. So the Rams, for a team that only had this much cap space, the Rams had a hell of an offseason. They're done in terms of acquisitions per se, but McVay's quite a salesman. He convinced Stafford to stay. Stafford could have gotten more money to go to the Giants, but then he would have been played in a miserable situation. Convinced Stafford to stay, and he never let Devontae Adams get on the open market. Adams was released early. He could have signed with anybody. They brought him into L.A. to meet. He never let him get on the plane to go home until he signed. Great salesman.
I hate to say this as a Niner fan, but I'm just more and more impressed with the Rams. I mean, especially with McVay, and the work and the general manager. I mean, they just got smart guys running that operation. And, even last season, you thought they were going to go in the tank. They started out, 1-4?
Transition.
But then they lit it up the rest of the year. I mean, yep. McVay is like a magic man.
And I'm not denouncing San Francisco. They've had good runs, great runs, and now they kind of have to take a step back because of the cap, and they're down 11 players. It's obviously not going to be the same franchise that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have to work for, but these guys built something really, really good along the way in San Francisco, and now it's a bit of a time to step back because they had all these big money contracts. You can't keep everybody.
That's a division that the Rams, I think, can win easily if they just play to their expectation.
Exactly. Okay, we move on. Let's do one more here, social media, before we put a lid on it.
Okay. Yeah, Sniffer's got his say here as well. Let's talk more Charger talk. And this is from Lenny. And he goes, the Chargers are wasting Herbert by not giving him a dominant receiver. They should have signed Higgins, not Williams.
Well, but Higgins' price tag was unbelievable. Higgins just signed in Cincinnati overnight. He and Jamar Chase simultaneously signed the deal. They got the massive payday. I want to say Higgins is going to make $30 million, and Jamar Chase now becomes the all-time highest paid player in the league outside of being a quarterback. He just signed for $41 million overnight. in Cincinnati. So the Chargers were never in the running to sign T. Higgins, even though they may have dropped some hints they would have liked taking. But we'll see what they do in the draft. You can go get speed guys, and then you got to bring them along. But they're still short, I think, in the pass reception department, and they're going to have to address that now in the draft because virtually everybody, all the free agents, are gone off the board.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they are wasting Herbert's, glory years here. I mean, how old is he?
Well, he's headed to what, his 6th year, 7th year?
So he's in his late 20s. He's probably right around close enough up 30 here. I mean, these are primetime years. Your late 20s are when you're athletically at the top of your game.
But understand this, going to get Mikael Becton from Philadelphia is huge. Getting Najee Harris is huge. Different type of tough guy running back. They bring back J.K. Dobbins. That's solid. Now, if you fix the problem at center, and maybe it's going to be Zion Johnson, and if you fix the problem at center, and then you can concentrate on going to get another wide receiver to put out there that's going to make defenses cringe because this guy's going deep while Ladd McConkey's doing everything he does. I don't know where Quentin Johnston is on the curve. They obviously kept him. They didn't cut him loose. They still see all this great physical talent, but we've yet to find any consistency. So they still got work to be done at the skill position department. But and the other thing is their defense took a hit. Nobody's talked about this. They lost Poona Ford to the Rams. And then overnight on the weekend, they lost the other big defensive tackle. Is it Fox? He went to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Morgan Fox. That's 2 biggies. They signed 2 young guys who've never been starters really per se in the NFL, and they cut loose Joey Bosa. So they got some holes there that they got to address on the defensive side.
Remember Jamal Williams?
Sure.
Yeah, wasn't he the big defensive tackle for the Chargers back then?
And University of Houston was a really good player for 8 or 9 years, but the wear and tear factor. But he had a big wide body guy.
Yeah, he was. I remember you talked about him as a wide body. Now, it's interesting. You're saying that they need a new center. And, we know, like, the responsibilities of those offensive linemen, I think it's interesting because you think of the tackles, the blind side, and they're protecting the quarterback.
Slater and Alt.
And then, I would think of the guards as the ones that are open up holes for the running back. The center obviously hikes the ball, but it's really more like a third guard.
But he's got to be a big physical guy to be able to hold up in protection, et cetera. And Bozeman was undersized. He was a weak link. Zion Johnson, the left guard, did not have a great season. That's why they're thinking maybe of moving him in. They do have Trey Pipkins. Maybe they could move him to the left guard. He's a big wide body guy, but he's kind of deficient. That's why Becton wound up there. So we're not done yet. Roster's not set. We'll just continue to analyze it as it occurs. But he's right. They don't have enough yet around Justin Herbert in terms of the skill area. They're building, I think, the front wall correctly.
Yeah, well, we're running out of time, I think.
And we're running out of time, too. By the way, the dog that was barking, we are the only podcast in America with a mascot.
Yes.
Sniffer is a beagle that lays here and counsels us. He is the executive producer, Sniffer the beagle. So when you hear barking, that's what the hell's going on in John's studio. Hey, this podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. You got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they will help you. Dixieline Lumber, build it, fix it. We guarantee you will enjoy it in 2025.